So in 2019, in what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants.
She
actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. It's your boy Kicking It with Tim BB. We're live right now. We are live right now. We got the presidential debate moments away, like 30 minutes away. And I figured that we would do a live stream for Myreactions here on this beautiful September 10th, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have some videos here for you? We got a lot of things to go over. Hopefully we can get to at least a couple things before the debate starts. I thought that we should start the video off with that, or start off the broadcast with that video. Going over Kamala Harris's interesting, how should I say, viewpoints that she had back in the day compared to what she has now. And that was one of the things that popped up. I was like, interesting. I think we might need to lead this video with this. I woke up and literally just went onto Twitter, and this was the first thing that we seen. This is CNN's Aaron Burnett, literally in shock about what Kamala Harris supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained illegal migrants. She actually said she supported that. Question mark, question mark. This is by Geiger Capital. Go check them out on Twitter, now known as X. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. You can hit me up on X at KIWTB Gaming. Shout out to Geiger Counter. Shout out to Geiger Capital for this. We had to go check out that video. Let me know what you folks think about that. I don't think it. I think there's some evil things going on like with that, but it's just not right. It doesn't make any sense, and I would love to hear some questions about that. Hopefully that is brought up during the debate tonight, and folks, you should definitely go look into that, because that's something she actually supported as she was running for president. So anyway, so we continue. We're like literally top 30 minutes away until the presidential debate. I'm going to jump on camera here. to get right into this news. Hello. It's your boy kicking it with Timmy B. We got more content for you. I hope everyone's doing well. If you are, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. Let's get right into this next video here. Elon Musk shared this. I seen this. I forgot whose YouTube channel I seen it on earlier, and I think I seen it on Instagram. We shared it on Instagram. That's where I initially seen it. But this gentleman here is telling it how it is, just to give you some context about what's going on here, to the Springfield City Council, Commission's Council, we'll call it that. Let's hear what he has to say. You might understand, you might relate, right? Let me know what you folks think. It's your boy kicking it with Timmy B. Let's go.
Do on a daily basis to have fun. Because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and and I'm getting out here every day, and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits or something. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... they flipping cars in the middle of the street.
For what? Just I have to stop this real quick. It's like on the news right now that there are some Haitian migrants that are stealing animals like ducks and pets, like cats or whatever, and like eating them. So and doing all kinds of other things. We will get some more info on that another time, but just want to give you some context of what this gentleman is kind of bringing up here.
And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from it. I feel like, I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got
it's a couple weeks ago.
A bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me tonight, FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's
can't get it.
Nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to, like, seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, y'all get the Highway State Patrol down here every week, and then y'all get, like, a task force for the Highway State Patrol. And they look for guns, and they look for dope, and this and that and the fourth. That same people that y'all got riding up and down Limestone doing U-turns, pulling people over for blinkers and pulling people over for, like, going left to center and, like, a couple miles over. Like, y'all can take them same people, the Highway State Patrol, and you can take them in every single one of their silver Chargers and Dodge Durangos, and y'all can take them to Sunset, and y'all can park them right over there, and y'all can teach people how to drive, since the Highway State Patrol knows so much about traffic laws and know what to do in traffic. They need to, y'all pay them. They can go over there and teach these Haitians how to drive, because it's getting bro. I'm getting thousands of views on these, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is. Like, y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's crazy, bro. We got to do something, bro. It's kids out here getting hurt. Like, only reason I even went on here and said something about it is because somebody told me they walking from the school and a Haitian almost ran into them. And who is getting paid? Like, how much money is y'all really getting paid, like, to bring them over here? Like, I know it's deeper than them. I know that's where they come from, and that's what they do. That's their country. I don't know what they got going on over there, but they can't do that over here. And if y'all just getting paid from it and then y'all ain't doing nothing about it, I think that's super weird, bro. Y'all got to stand on business. Y'all got to really, like, step up. Like, it's lame, bro. Like, for real.
Let's go. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go. They got the suits. It's so good. So great to, get the actual perspective of where he is at and what he's seeing. Because, like, yeah, these folks are wearing suits. It's like, what are y'all paid for if all of this stuff is going on? Like, got to do better, right? City of Springfield established Ohio 1850. So, to my knowledge, I posted this on Instagram, and I got a false report little thing like right under the story. Like I posted it to my story. It's like a false report. I don't. I mean, is it false because this gentleman, what he is saying about them doing that to ducks is false, or is this video false? Because it seems like the video is pretty real. It was like a couple weeks ago, like Springfield City Commission meeting, like Ohio. I mean, this seems like a real town, real people. The gentleman seems like he's bringing up real issues. I don't understand what is false about this. I don't know, but you folks, let me know what you think about that. So, I had to go share that. It's very interesting. I do want to share this, but I have to watch. Nick Mersch goes in and he says words that might be against the TOS, and I want to go against the TOS. I want to stay within the lines here, but obviously I got to talk my talk, right? I got to talk my talk, and we got to walk my walk. Talk the talk and walk the walk. So anyway, shout out to End Wokeness. Apparently this is like some folks from the House or something like that. Judiciary. GOP's got this nice little board here with Donald Trump with a duck and a kitty in the water. In the water. He's got the suit on. he's got the suit on. Like, I don't know why it took me so long, like, to realize he's wearing a suit in the water. He's wearing a suit in the water, protecting the duck and the kitties. And this gentleman has something to say. His name is Eric Swalwell. I thought I had a funny last name. Not like that, though. I thought I had a funny last name. Eric Swalwell is losing his mind. Okay, Eric Swalwell. I can't even say this. Eric Swalwell is losing his mind over the Haitian cat memes. Keep them coming. Shout out to End Wokeness. Let's see what this gentleman has to say, or this person who calls himself a man.
What in the hell is this? The chairman tweets, "Protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio," because he goes down some crazy rabbit hole, completely debunked that aliens are eating pets.
My guy said aliens, like aliens from the sky. The aliens. I mean, I know that was like a thing, right? Like cows getting abducted, but I've never heard of aliens eating cows, right?
My God.
Eating pets.
Are you
Yo, let's
okay,
go.
Mr. Chairman? Because last year, for a very long time, you tweeted and promoted Kanye West as he was calling for genocide against the Jews, and you kept it up. And now, when we have victims coming here, you're tweeting this nonsense. I don't know why you would do this.
He looks
I hope
disappointed.
you're okay. I don't know if the aliens who are eating your ducks are in the room with us right now, but Mr. Chairman, this is a serious issue. These people have loved ones who have been lost, and you tweeted this.
What about the pets, though? What about the pets that have been lost? What about those ducks? You know what I mean? What about that? What about the kitties, as they say? What about the animals? What about we gotta protect the animals, man. Where's PETA? Where are those folks at? I'd love to know. Aren't they like all about saving the animals? Shout out to the House Judiciary GOP with the American flags. Protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio. I don't know why I had a difficult time saying that. Maybe I'm just so taken back that there are folks out there harming animals. It's not right, man. It's not right. Folks, we got less than 19 minutes left until this debate. How excited are you? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like, share, and the subscribe button. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We got
I think
more
it's like kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out.
So we got Senior Nick Merckx, and he just dropped this today. He says, "Stay true to your beliefs." Nick Merckx is a popular streamer, online influencer.
What
He
in the
is
hell?
a husband, and he is a father, and he is a son. Sounds like he is a God-fearing man, just to give you enough of that context. But he's had his Call of Duty skin banned in Call of Duty, or he had a skin in Call of Duty, and it was banned or was taken off the store because he had said some things about the folks that I'm not going to mention here. I have nothing against those folks. I'm just going to say that, but I have no smoke with those folks. But Nick Merckx said some things, and the main thing, which is the most important thing, is leave the children alone. And I mean, it started a lot of controversy after that, and then he had his skin taken down at that point, and then Dr. Disrespect. Okay, Dr. Disrespect was banned for communicating with a minor inappropriately, and that just like dropped sometime like a couple months ago over the summer. And Nick Merckx has now like disowned or separated himself from Dr. Disrespect, and it seems to have brought him to this conversation that he has here on this podcast for the boys, I guess. Bussin' with the boys. I don't know. I've never heard of these folks. But they have Nick Merckx on. And yeah, I've never seen Nick Merckx. This is Barstool. So it's Barstool, and they have like a podcast. This podcast has a podcast with Barstool. Anyway, he goes on and has this conversation about some of this stuff here. I want to go check it out. I just want to give folks context. And I do want to say one thing before we get started into this, because I think it needs to be said. Dr. Disrespect stuck up for Nick Merckx when he was receiving this backlash for leaving the children, for saying what he said, and then obviously and having his skin taken out of the game. Like Dr. Disrespect stuck up for him, but you know, just want to say that. Not that changes anything. I just want to say that that's my perspective of it on that I feel like that's not being spoken on it. But you leave the children alone. That's the main thing, right? It's the main thing. I need to make that known. Anyway, let's go check this out. Enough of my rant.
Explain this Twitch universe. Are you currently banned on it?
No, I did get banned though for saying a derogatory term.
I have to mute this.
The term, you want me to say the term?
Tranny.
You know, and true, I really did not know that was ever used. As
I don't
a
even want to mess
derogatory
around with that
term for those people. I really didn't.
I know, but it's just you're so well spoken, and then you were obviously in a hairy, like watery situation.
Yeah.
And you're like, you just want to say the right thing here.
Yeah, you do. You know, I think I've stopped caring as much about what people think about my opinions. You know, I believe the things I believe, and if people ask me, I'm going to share those things. I'm confident in them. You know, I'm always eager to learn more and to explore the other side of the coin. But at the same time, I strongly disagree with all of that stuff. You know, I think it's inherently unhealthy, and it's a scary precedent to set going forward for young children to say, hey, listen, if they're feeling a type of way, they can do this, and that. I believe, you know, through the way I was raised and now being a father myself, that there's other ways to combat that. And that if at the least, the first thing that we should do is try to find a healthier alternative than the things that we're doing. So, you know, I spoke about that, and there's a lot of trans people out there and LGBT people that probably think that I hate them, but I don't. You know, the real truth is that I feel bad, you know, that they feel the way they do, and I want what's best for them. I just don't think that it's smart to peddle and push the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that that's bad, and it's been proven to be bad.
That sounds like the biggest dub Nick Merckx has said about this whole thing. I mean, after he had like initially received that backlash, I thought he kind of like addressed it at some point, like, hey man, it's all cool. I don't have an issue with anybody like that. He just don't like, he feels a certain way about what they're pushing, and that's how he sees it. I mean, it's not like he has any hate towards anybody. It's just how he felt about it being put on children or whatever. Yeah, that sounds like the most real thing that he said so far about this. Because, like, you know, no one should be like, you know, disrespected for like how they feel, as long as it's like not hurting anybody. Come on now, like, but like, you know, I don't know. I think I'll put it that way. Let's continue.
When you make those kinds of changes to your body and then you encourage them at a young age, that's
13 minutes left, folks.
I can't believe that we live in a world that does that. So I spoke out about that. I did use the word tranny. I did not.
I forgot to mute it.
To be
I forgot to mute it, man.
Make no mistake about it. I was talking shit. Bro, like, I don't want to sit up here and act like I wasn't talking.
Busting with the boys.
Shit, but I'm giving it as good as I get it, because you know, when you open up that door, I mean, a lot of these people, they live online, man, and they're about it online.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. Like,
them trolls they be trolling.
Well, did you become more passionate about this stance once you had a kid?
Yeah, I became more passionate about the stance, and I also became more comfortable speaking about it, because, like I said earlier, man, I think having a kid and being a parent, a lot of times you hear parents say that, like, you know, having a kid changes everything. I don't know if I believe that. You know, I haven't been a parent for too long, right? But I do believe that having a kid changes the way you think about everything. Mm-hmm. So, look, I kind of always thought this way. I wasn't as passionate, right?
Right, because it's not necessarily affecting or has a potential to affect you.
So who cares, right? Just keep it going. But I mean, you know, you're seeing a lot more of it, and you're seeing it become an issue in schools, especially here in this country. And I just, you know, if and when hopefully someday we look back on this time and it's a lot different, I would have been super disappointed in myself that I never said anything.
Right.
Straight up. That's what I thought about it. I spoke to my dad about it. You know, Dad, am I making the wrong decision? And like, you know, business wise, yeah, I'm burning all kinds of cash, but I'm set. I'm good. So that's also it's a little caveat in the conversation too. You know, you might ask yourself, you know, hey, Nick, should you have said something way sooner? You know, did you hold out because of the bread? I mean, the truth is that I had a kid. That's the truth. And that was a big turning point for me, you know. But it's definitely the combination of a lot of things, man. You know, either way, I have a community that strongly believes in me. There's so many people out there that agree with me on this topic as well. They're just afraid to talk about it, speak about it, because you get in big trouble.
I hear a lot of that.
People mad. Like,
I hear a lot of that.
I don't want to wake up every day and piss people off. The guy that's tweeting me the paragraph, what he's upset. Like, I don't want him to be mad or disappointed. I mean, I'm sorry that he feels the way he does about me. And I wish I could do something about it. And like, if he could really just rip the truth out of my fucking chest and put it in front of him, he would see that I'm not this enemy.
Wow.
Unless he wants that being taught to kids in school, then you are my enemy. How do you guys feel about that?
Wow. No, I loved everything you said. Right
Logically,
there.
everything you said, I align with. Especially having kids. You run into those issues with things being taught to kids in school. When it's like, hey, you're going to school to learn the things you need to learn at school. Right. Not what you think the kids should learn, but just like the math, the science, the history, all those things. And then let me go, and then it's up to us as parents to go and now instill these beliefs that we want. If you're a religious cat, you want to instill religion. If you know, all those things, because it's very difficult for me to understand. Like, my children's opinions are really, like, the opinions they have are kind of the opinions I have and that they've heard, and so they just feel that way as well. So like, it's just hairy when you start messing with kids and not allowing them to develop and grow the way you want them to. It just becomes more difficult.
I'm not cool with that, right?
To, like, stand by and just let it happen. I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah, man. And I mean, you know, people like to say,
I don't even have any kids, man. But
you throw being a parent around. You throw being a parent. You know,
teach them
like,
the basics and let
them have an opinion, even if they're not a parent. I agree with
parent
that.
Deal with
I just
that.
think that there's a perspective that's gained after having your own kid, which I'm sure you guys can agree with, right? Yeah. And it's just, you know, you know how impressionable your kids are, and you know how impressionable your kid is. You know, it's like I know as well. Like, when I do stuff in front of my little boy, you know, he does it back, and vice versa. Like, we play all the time, we hang out all the time, so we know how impressionable these young minds are. because we were young too, man. Like like, dude, it's just not. It doesn't make sense to encourage these kinds of things when we know how kids are.
Hello. Well, shout out to Nick Merckx. I mean, this is like the most brief, like non-offensive, straight to the point. I mean, down to the heart, for like straight from the heart. I've heard Nick Merckx, and then still be in a cool setting with the boys here, but still be able to like get you straight to the facts and how he feels, man. Like, there ain't no smoke with any of the folks. It's just he does not like what, or he sees that there's something being taught to the children there. He doesn't like it. I mean, like, I don't know. I can't knock him for it, right? It's not hurting nobody, right? Anyway, that's what I think about it. That's what he thought about it. Shout out to the homie Nick Merckx. I mean, I thought that this was a big dub. Now, the whole Dr. Disrespect stuff, I mean, he had stuff to say about that. We actually pulled up to the tweet here, and it gets pretty crazy here. Like, it goes in, and he's received a lot of feedback from it. I'm not going to get into it, but if y'all have a Twitter, definitely pull up if y'all want to look into that. So anyway, shout out to Nick Merckx. All right, so what else do we have here? Apparently, Merrick County election fraud, maladministration during the July primary. They erased the results from the election day at 9 to 20 vote centers. We have 7 minutes left, folks. I'm just reading off something here. Illegally recounted the ballots. They broke the law. There's like 756,000 people watching this. Is this live? There's no way this is live. We'll have to come back to that. All right, so I hope everyone enjoyed that. Let's see what else we have here. What is this? This is the... Okay, so this is mine. Let's get the... We're going to watch it on ABC, right?
Was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was not to be taken lightly. And I don't think there was ever a moment in 2016 where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly.
6 minutes left.
And clearly during the prep session,
this is Chris Christie.
It was very, very difficult
Hold up one second.
to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part reflected that.
Shout out to ABC.
So the question's going to be,
go check out ABC.
Publicly what he really believes. We know
News.
that often with Donald Trump, that's performance. But I will tell you that in his 2016 prep, he was serious about getting ready for Hillary Clinton. In his 2020 debate prep, he was completely unserious about getting ready for Joe Biden. I think performances in both those debates reflected that approach.
Do I have something like a short
Welcome
video?
Back to live.
You'll be watching with
Let's
us.
see if I can find a short
We
video.
have about 6 minutes left before the debate, so let's bring in Donna Brazil, formerly of the DNC, and Reince Priebus, the RNC.
Hold up
Welcome
real
to both
quick,
of
folks.
you.
We're
And
going to come
Donna,
back to
let's
this.
start with you.
I want to
You
play
have
this.
said-
I want to play this video here. It's real. It's probably just enough time. Real quick, shout out to Fox News. Apparently, 2 planes collided on the runway at Atlanta Airport. I seen it earlier this morning as the other story that we had seen, and I want to go check it out. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. Let's go see what's going on.
Now from Fox, I'm Stephanie Quinn. Time right now is 12:08 Eastern, 9:08 Pacific. And I do want to show you this live look from Atlanta, Georgia, as we do follow some breaking news. At around 10 this morning, we've learned that 2 planes made contact at the intersection of taxiways at the North Airfield of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. And you're taking a live aerial view of the runway right there, as you can see the camera from the helicopter panning and showing us some views right there, zooming into the Delta Airlines hangar right there. What we've learned is at this time, no injuries have been reported, and passengers are being bused from the incident to the concourses. You can see that this aerial view from the helicopter does appear to be panning away. However, we do have another look right here from the ground. This is Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport right there. So this is just another view of the airport. We have learned that there is minimal impact to airport operations right there.
And
in fact, we do have a statement that we did want to share with you from the airport itself.
Fire or anything like that.
This is from the Atlanta airport spokesperson saying, quote, at approximately 10:07 this morning, 2 aircrafts made contact at the intersection of taxiways E and H on the North Airfield. At this time, no injuries are reported. Passengers from one of the aircraft are being bused from the incident to the concourses. The second aircraft taxied under its own power to a concourse where passengers will deplane at their gate. There is minimal impact to airport operations. And that statement had one additional line. It said, quote, please contact Delta Airlines for additional information, leading us to believe that perhaps those aircrafts are related to Delta Airlines. As of now, Delta Airlines has not issued a statement of its own. But once again, you're taking a live look from the airport right there. And my producer, Julianne, just sending me additional information that I wanted to share with you. Delta Airlines has issued a statement saying that it is cooperating with the NTSB and other authorities on this incident. And our Fox 5 Atlanta team has a little more information as it relates to this collision. We now know that 2 Delta airline planes collided while taxiing at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport at around 10:07 a.m. Eastern Time. An Airbus A350 that was flying to Tokyo clipped the tail of a regional jet, which was headed to Louisiana, causing damage to both planes. No injuries have been reported, and passengers are being transported back to the terminal for rebooking on alternate flights. And as I just mentioned, we've learned that Delta Airlines is working with the NTSB and other authorities to investigate this incident. We are continuing to gather more information, but we have learned that there were about 221 customers on the regional jet and 56 customers on one of the other airplanes. At this time, no additional operational adjustments are expected. So we did want to share this breaking news with you, and this comes as there were 2 workers who were killed and another seriously injured last month in a tire explosion at a Delta Airlines maintenance facility near this Atlanta airport. So we're learning more information as we've learned that Delta is cooperating with the NTSB, but we did want to share this breaking news as 2 planes did collide on a runway at the Atlanta International Airport. We are going to step away.
Yo, shout out to Fox News. I'm going to leave this link in the description below. We got 1 minute left. Looks like no one was hurt or harmed in this. We got to go figure out why it happened. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Right? All right. Onward. Let's get this cracking. Let's go.
And perhaps the debate now just 10 seconds away, and we will be back with our post-game show as soon as it's over. We are going to toss it right now to David Muir and Lindsay Day.
So ABC News is supposed to be hosting
the
this.
high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election. Their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special. The most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new
We'll be right back, folks. Thank you for being here.
We will soon be a great nation again.
It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. Let's go.
The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places they've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden
She's taking notes right now on what he's saying,
our country.
so she can come back.
They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
I'll be right back.
We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run spot. Just, says she doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports. You might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
Like it should be.
I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
The details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support
quantum
America's
computing
workforce so that we don't end
now
up
she's
having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at
good
his
old
tweet.
Xi.
Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump.
First of all, they bought the chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of
South of Taiwan
philosophies
for all
like
those
they
chips
have, and policies like
some good
they
people
have.
out there.
I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, into our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed
what
our
do you folks
country
think?
with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade last
See what
year.
happens
You
here.
said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
I did see this video that he's talking about.
Because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
On the individual he's talking about.
Vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it.
Good old
but
Tim
her
Walz.
vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength
At the Supreme Court.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan
makes
did
sense.
also. 85% of Republicans
Shout out to
did.
Ronald Reagan.
Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President
How about made
Harris.
by the
Well, there she
state?
goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no
Lots
reason
of
to
the
sign a ban.
individual
because
states.
We've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just
bipartisan.
talk. You know what it
It's not gonna
reminds
be
me of when they
bipartisan,
said
huh?
they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, we
Come
could
on,
call
man,
him
you
a
gotta stay
boss.
on
He
track,
spends all his
dog.
time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because J.D. Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said.
For an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting. Needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make. Is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond.
Okay.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
I'll be right back.
you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
why don't you
That's
answer the
problem.
question, would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you
here we go, the
to
viral
attend
clip.
one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer.
Because you're
And what
letting
you will
in these
also
Hannibal
notice is
Lecter
that people
people.
start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve.
You
a
haven't been
president
talking
who
at all,
actually puts
lady.
You first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice
So
President Harris,
difficult
thank
to
you.
listen to
President
this
Trump, on
person.
that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me
It's
just
like
ask,
the
though,
first
why
time
did you
she's-
try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies.
Because
she said people start leaving.
if
People don't go
funded,
to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
money
and
to
the people that do go, she's busing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation.
There
And
we
it
go.
happened 3.5 years ago, and what's going on here,
There we
it ended
go.
up in World War III, just to go into
Oh.
another subject, what they have done to our
Let's
country by
go.
allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the
Not
United
all of
States.
them
And
are
a lot
bad.
of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Right.
And this is what's
Straight to the
happening
point.
in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the
We're comparing
reason they
rallies.
go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News
just
did
watched
reach out
that
to the
video,
city
yeah?
manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just
That's
say here,
why
this
they
is the-
fact-checked
People on
me, huh?
television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the
Someone's animal
endorsement
got eaten. I don't
of
think that's
200
funny at all.
Republicans who have
To be real.
formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney,
What do I
and
know?
John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
You mean General
His former
Milley,
national
that
security
loser?
advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
Right.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I
You
fired
lose
them.
your job.
They never fired
Yep.
one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he
Those
writes
poor-
a book. Another one
those poor
writes a
people,
book.
man.
Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy.
Everyone just keeps
look
their
at the
job.
inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same
Do
people.
bad,
That's
keep
a good
job.
way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Wow. Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference.
What does this have to
has
do with
been
people
found
invading the
liable
border,
for
yo?
sexual assault,
Oh,
and
man.
his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000
vice
agents.
president?
Get this.
Calling him the
on
former
the day
vice
after he was
president.
arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Oh, man,
So
this
let's
lady.
talk about what is important in this race. It is
Former vice
important that
president.
we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those
Is it
cases.
Alvin Bragg?
And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden
Special
was found
Counsel Jack
essentially
Smith.
guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never...
The president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States.
That's
that he
crazy.
would
That doesn't
weaponize
sound
the
right at all.
Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly
Isn't that what y'all are doing right now?
disdain
I don't know,
for
man.
members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't
We're
stop him. We
bowling
know
now.
J.D. Vance is not going to stop him.
JD.
It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We got a lot to get into.
Vice
Okay, there's
President Harris, in
more.
your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hard worked and saved and was able to buy our first home
What
when
does
I
this
was
have
a
to
teenager.
do with reserves
The values I
you
bring
gave away?
to the importance of
Are you using?
homeownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
What does it have to do with
It's a
oil
value that I bring to my
and
work
gas?
to say we are going to work with the private sector. 3 million homes, increased by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to
do people afford
having
those
a
homes?
friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
Oh,
And my
man.
focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about
Absolutely.
protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
What does this have to do with gas prices?
First of all, I wasn't given $400
or grocery
million.
prices?
I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever.
Ah, now we're talking.
All that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
Let's go.
Does that sound familiar?
He did it. Let's go. Yo, that's crazy.
In Minnesota, and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Let me watch
this
that video.
Is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important, in my opinion.
Keystone Pipeline, man.
I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of.
Driving electric cars.
By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
Just the power.
Good things for the environment that she understands.
Thank you.
Interesting.
We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office.
Rest in peace, Ashley
Babbitt. It was
Babbitt.
more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not
Shout out to
about
Nancy
former Speaker
Pelosi.
But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
For not doing her job. Shout out to Nancy.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
Mm.
I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there.
And she
on
wasn't
that
voted
day,
in, by the way, right?
The president of the United States
No one
incited a
voted
violent
for her
mob
to be vice president, folks. I'm
to
just letting y'all know that.
our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page.
No,
and
can we go
if that
back?
was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course
I don't think that's what he meant, though.
for the future and not go
But
backwards
okay.
to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term
It's about
that
selling
related
cars,
to
right?
energy because
Right.
they destroyed our energy business. That was
Man.
where Bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people.
Shout out to them.
They covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill,
Come
that
on
the
down,
border is
Sleepy.
closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol.
Come on
who are
over here.
phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
Yeah, close this down, man.
Here tonight. I do want to focus on
Get old
next issue,
Sleepy.
both of you, because it
Get him
really
on
brings
down
us,
here.
this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences.
I love that.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And
what about Joe
clearly he is
Biden,
having
though?
A very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States.
You weren't even voted in.
Attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States.
Can you get to the point,
world leaders
dude?
are laughing at Donald Trump.
Dude, they're laughing at you,
talked with military
dude.
leaders, some of whom work with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
And then they blew it up.
XL pipeline in our country, he ended that.
Is crazy,
but he let
man.
the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What
about those 14
you talk about
million?
a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I
up.
think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and hostages.
Another
Vice
great
President
topic.
Harrison, how would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we
You're not
got
going to be
here.
able to.
On October 7th,
Understand how we got it.
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
Right.
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert.
That's very sad.
Women were horribly raped. And so, absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end
How are we gonna stop it?
immediately. And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
No,
Work
you're not.
around the clock,
You
also
don't.
understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution.
Mm.
And in that solution,
Okay.
there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal
Right.
measure for the Palestinians.
Right.
But the one thing I will assure you always,
I'm
I will
here
always
for
give
it.
Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu
Okay.
and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
Let's
If I
hear
were
this.
president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my
What
entire
happened to
career and
Josh
life
Shapiro?
supported Israel and the
Why didn't she
Israeli
talk to
people.
Benjamin
He knows
Netanyahu
that.
when he
He's trying
came to
again,
America?
divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known.
Go look that up.
That Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators wants to be a
Meanwhile,
dictator on day one,
Afghanistan's
according to
$80 billion
himself.
worth of gear.
It is well known
You just
that
let them
he
have.
said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he
well,
said
now
when
he's doing that
Russia
right now,
went into
under
Ukraine,
your-
it was
under your
brilliant.
watch.
It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Love letters!
And it is absolutely well known that these dictators
Rocket
and autocrats
Man!
are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that
I'm probably
we
lying
have
to your
have
face,
a
but okay.
president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week.
Yeah,
Sens,
I heard
and
about
think
that.
He meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely
Murder.
incredible. It wouldn't
Yep.
have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential
Wow.
debate from the National Constitution Center.
How
right
long was
here
that?
in Philadelphia.
It's like
Back
an-
in a moment.
40-something minutes. Man, this lady is crazy.
The ABC News.
This guy's crazy here
presidential
too, man.
debate
He's just
will
like sitting here.
After this.
It's so wild. I'd love to see what
It was of regular.
let's see what people were talking about here. It's like, so I like took some notes here. The economic plan. We got the tariffs, right? That Donald Trump wants to put on. Who has the highest inflation, right? Gas, groceries, quantum computing. What does Kamala Harris know about quantum computing? I would love to know. What do I know about quantum computing? I would love to know that too. But what does Kamala Harris, however you say this woman's name, Trump thanks President Xi. Did he thank President Xi? I got to figure out any more context on that. Abortion in the 9 month or in the 9th month, excuse me. Let's pull this up here. States have to vote for that because he wants the states to make the vote instead of the government, what Kamala Harris is saying. I kind of figured that that's who that was, Pamela Anderson. IVF. Pets not eaten in Ohio. I mean, can we get a fact check on that? Like, I feel like we might have to go pull that up. I don't know how much time that we have here, but we might have to go pull that up. Called Donald J. Trump the criminal. She said it. She said he is the criminal. Because that's one of the talking points that I was hearing that was going to be said. Make it known that he is being prosecuted and that he is a criminal. Even though that this lady is letting in criminals into the country. So far, I think Kamala Harris she was definitely working on something when she was going to those spice stores, checking out the spices. She was working on some kind of game plan here for you. I will not be afraid to admit that. I will not be afraid to admit that. Admit that. Now, can you believe I have YouTube Premium to get rid of like the ads. So when I pull up a video, it just goes right to it. It just doesn't interrupt it or anything. These folks at ABC said no. No, we're gonna give you this ad here, this ad break. But I hope everyone's enjoying the stream. Thank you for being here. We're covering the presidential 2004 debate with Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, or excuse me, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. We got to put respect on people's names. Let's see here. Do I have a video here? I think we have
Russia
some.
is accusing Ukraine of.
We'll play that after. Is this it? This is crazy. Check this out. Check this out. Hold up. Let's throw this back on here real quick.
I think I would have to make.
We're waiting for the debate to start back up. Is it right here? It's right here. Check this out, folks. Shout out to Black Scout Survival, aka Jack Richland. Go check him out. There's like some body cam footage of this kid, the whole Georgia incident. Let's go check this out real quick. Talking to this guy's this kid's dad.
Somebody from your old address
present this as
that made a threat to shoot up a school.
For real?
Yes, sir.
What? Tell me what.
You have any kids or anything living here?
Colt Gray.
Colt?
Yeah, Colt. He's my oldest son.
How old is he?
He's 13.
He's got a beer in his hand and everything.
I do.
And this is the FBI pulling up on this fool.
Sensible to him?
They are.
Yeah, go in, have a beer in your hand while the FBI are here because your son is threatening to do stupid stuff online. That looks real good,
that
bro.
it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin
back,
wins,
folks.
he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is now
times.
your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely
Those are
support
great
and over
questions.
the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a
Oh,
previous
no.
point that the former president
Hold
has
up
made.
now.
I've made very
Okay.
clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I
She's
are both
doing
gun owners. We're not
buybacks.
taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Oh, wow.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand,
I'm gonna hold you to
look
that,
at the
then.
history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged
Rest
as
in peace.
you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Fastest
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
Made a
of
mistake.
Did she work on that?
Number
Man,
one,
she must have worked on that
John
one.
McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only
Wow.
him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to.
'Cause that's what happens when
important
you
for a
get
number
free
of
insurance.
Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's
You get
climate
put
change.
on a
President Trump, with
waiting
regard
list
to the
'cause it's not that
environment,
great.
You say that we have to have clean
you
air
get
and
it, though.
clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President
You're not
Harris,
an
we'll start
American
with
citizen.
you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually
A lot of
deal
homeless
with this
people
issue.
outside,
The young
man.
people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to
seems
create
like this is,
manufacturing
like,
jobs.
really
He lost
scripted.
manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers
not
and Sean
hating.
Fain, who
It's
also
really
know
scripted.
that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in
Where are they?
Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States
Right.
because of these people.
And make all
what
this
they have
money
given
off
to
of
China
us.
is unbelievable. But we're
While
not
they
going to
make
let that. We'll
millions
put tariffs
off
on
of
those
us.
cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different
Burisma.
countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine,
Right.
China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I was kind of expecting more, but like I think this is all right, right?
Presidential debate will continue.
I think this is all right, right? Yo, that's crazy. Yo, Kamala Harris is going. She's kind of popping off a little. Yo, what? Oh, but I'm like, yo, why does this seem so? It seems so scripted. Like whatever she was putting in some work. I gotta. She was putting in some work. On this prep, she was putting in some work. This is my personal opinion. I mean, like that's powerful enough to go up against like Donald Trump in my personal opinion. But I mean, if it come down to it, like let's see how this ends. Obviously, I want to see how this ends, and then we'll go from there. Do we have another video? I think we got another one here.
Joining me.
Yo, I seen this. This is crazy, bro. A Tyreek Hill. Does anybody know who Tyreek Hill is? Tyreek Hill is an NFL football player for the Miami Dolphins. Well, I'm a Steelers fan. Not really much of like any other football fan. But apparently this gentleman, something happened today. I want to go check this video out real quick because as this woman says, it's very disturbing. Shout out to CNN. So this was like 11 hours ago. This is like all real, you know, September 10th, 2024, you know, CNN here. I would get you an article. We'll go check out an article tomorrow, but I want to get this out there real quick.
A few hours before the season's opening game, Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill was 1 block away from Miami's Hard Rock Stadium when he was stopped by police. He was pulled from his car, surrounded by multiple officers, thrown to the ground. A knee was put in his back, and he was handcuffed. Now, tonight, after public outcry, and a lot of it, the Miami Police Department is releasing body camera footage of the incident, and it is disturbing to watch. Take a look.
Hey, keep your window down. Keep your window down. I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Give me your ass, bro. Get out of the car. Give me your ass, bro. Break that freaking window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out. 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 What part of Dallas do you understand? Hey, Drew, I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting out, bro. God damn, twin. When we tell you to do something, you do it. You understand?
I'm getting out.
You understand? Not what you want, but what we tell you. You're a little confused.
Now, about a minute after this, and once Hill was handcuffed, he was again forced to the cement.
Hold on, bro. I just had surgery on my knee. I just had surgery on my knee, bro. I just had surgery on my knee, bro. I just had surgery in your ears when we told you to put your window down. Chill, bro. Chill, bro.
Now, tonight, Tyreek Hill speaking for the first time since that body camera video was released right here on CNN.
If I wasn't Tyreek Hill, worst case scenario, we would have had a different article, you know. Tyreek Hill, you know, got shot in front of Hard Rock Stadium.
The Miami Police Department says that they released this footage earlier than usual, quote, to reinforce the department's commitment to keeping the public informed. They've also placed one of the officers involved on administrative duties, that's important, while an investigation is being conducted. And the police union, they are defending the officers, saying that Hill was, quote, not immediately cooperative with the officers on scene who, pursuant to policy and for their immediate safety, placed Mr. Hill in handcuffs. Joining me now, Stephen A. Smith, the host of First Take on ESPN, is also the host of the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube. Stephen A., I have to know what your reaction was when you saw the body camera video, not just what we heard about it, but when you actually saw it. And I remember a phrase you used earlier today, and it stuck with me, the ease of dehumanization. What was your reaction?
Well, I still feel that way from the
We're still in a
standpoint
commercial
that,
break.
you know, it was excessive. It was completely unnecessary on the part of the officers, particularly and specifically when he was handcuffed. And so I stand by everything that I said earlier this morning on ESPN's First Take, and of course, my YouTube show, the Stephen A. Smith Show. I meant what I said when I said it was just unnecessary, and it just speaks to the ease with which black men can be dehumanized, because you've seen situations where people who happen to not be black have had issues with the police, and yes, they may end up in handcuffs and they be taken away, similar to what happened to golfer Scotty Scheffler in Kentucky a few months ago in May. But he was detained. He was put in handcuffs. He was detained. He was taken away. He was arrested. That certainly was not the case with Tyreek Hill. But in the same breath, to forcibly throw him to the ground face first, to know that there's 90+ degree weather and you're putting him on that asphalt, and in terms of that heat, and then afterwards he's standing up. You already have him cuffed. You have other officers around, and to feel the need to throw him to push him and shove him to the ground that way, to sit him down that way, was completely unnecessary, and it speaks to the excessive behavior of the police officers. But in fairness to police officers everywhere, and specifically those police officers there, when this latest body cam footage was released and we saw it, let me remind everybody, they did ask him to roll down his window, not one, not twice, but at least 3 times. Then they also asked him to get out of the car. In each instance, there was hesitation on his part and a lack of cooperation. So when they,
I mean, that's all you need to hear, right? At that moment. It looks like we're back here. Let's get right back to it. Get this out of the way. Boom.
We're not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like, we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Thank you. And we are here live
Did I miss that?
ABC with our post-debate comments. I'm Martha Raddatz. It was a lively debate, from the economy to abortion to Afghanistan. They had it all, and it was historic, John Carl, fiery.
Wow. Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm Jonathan Carl here with, of course, Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. Our reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks. You can find all of that on ABC.
I missed like
but I would like to replay
a little bit of
moment
this.
at
We're gonna
the
go
very
back.
Start of this debate.
Right,
because
that
it
was
quite a
something,
moment.
right?
The handshake. And if you look,
She looks like she's like. He looks like he's like trying to avoid this lady as much as possible. Oh my god.
She initiated that one. Yeah,
She
initiated.
Yeah, these
She
people are so
walked
funny.
over to him and sought him out. Put
Hold
hands
up,
out,
hold up, hold
and
up, hold
also
up.
made the first word.
And probably had a plan if he hadn't put his hand out either.
Interesting. So more at the bottom
We're
line.
gonna let this play out just for
I
a
think
minute or two, folks, and then we're gonna go
Clearly,
back.
What Kamala Harris
Okay.
wanted to do was be the candidate of.
I have to specify
the
that.
candidate
Thank you
of
for
the
being here,
future.
folks.
Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her, to just angry. I mean, really yelling at some points, trying to make his points. I don't think we heard a lot of policy and plans on either side of that, despite those questions over and over again. But what you had was that optic. You had Kamala Harris looking over, baiting him again and again and again. The microphones were muted when they weren't speaking, but many times she didn't need a microphone. You watch Donald Trump get mad, scowl through things. And, you know, John, we were all talking leading up to this about how this would go, what Donald Trump you would see. I think he had a plan for talking about what he saw as a next term, but then he was talking about rumors about people eating their neighbors' pets. So it really devolved into that.
I mean, look, Kamala Harris didn't really explain some of the big questions that were out there about why she changed her policy views on so many things. Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing the debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he looked not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who, again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is somebody that could serve as president.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you, the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. She flat out trolled him many times, got him off message, but she also talked directly to voters, even inviting them to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign that she says he's only out for himself, that she argues she's out for the American people.
Yo, I'm gonna end it right there. Hold up. Folks, I apologize. I so apologize. We don't get to do too many of these because this individual running for the vice president doesn't do these. So it's like I'm not used to all this. Hold up. That's my excuse, but for real, that was my bad. We got to go back. This lady doesn't do these interviews, and that CNN's thing, man, that's whack. Yo, we pulled back up and it was like literally a minute and a half left. I'm like, yo, what just happened?
Here again.
We got to go
David
back.
Muir and Lindsay Davis.
So this should be the last
Welcome
part,
back to
right?
this historic ABC News
All right,
presidential
so let's
debate
go.
tonight. We're going to
Thank you for being here.
I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more. because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president?
Wow.
Well, we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Just to clarify on
So
the
we
question,
did get to this. Okay,
do you
well
believe
then...
it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to
we
win
didn't
this
miss
war, yes or no?
anything.
I think it's the
We
US
didn't miss
best
anything,
interest to get this
folks.
war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Right. They didn't go over. Man, I don't think this was enough time, man. It just wasn't enough time to go over all of the things that need to be talked about. I think that's my conclusion to this debate. Is like, it wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. At least, like, I was expecting a lot more from Donald Trump, man, but like, yo, Kamala Harris, I think that was like well rehearsed on her part, that like she took the time to go over whatever she went over. I'm very curious if there was any chance of her of like getting the there's JD Vance here. What? Getting the questions
preposterous
before.
for the media to focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear, and not on the fact that people can't afford groceries and housing because of Kamala Harris's policies. This election is actually quite simple, and Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract Americans on issues, by the way, that Donald Trump's been crystal clear about, but they're not talking nearly enough. This debate didn't talk nearly enough about the fact that Americans are struggling because they can't afford groceries. They can't afford housing.
Dude, JD Vance knows what it is, man.
Overdoses because
He's a
Kamala
cool
Harris
dude
has
right
let the
here.
Mexican drug cartels take over the southern border. This is a disgrace,
Senator,
what's going on in our country, John, and we could do so much better if we just had better leadership. We've got
Right.
the best workers, the most
Let's go.
beautiful country, the best natural resources, but Kamala Harris's leadership is squandering the great benefits of this country. It's why we've got to get back
Senator-
to Donald Trump's leadership.
This
Senator,
guy's
by
like,
the way,
he's
I
like-
asked because he hadn't been crystal clear, and he said something different than what you said. That's why I was seeking clarification. But let me ask you about this. We're just very quickly. I heard Donald Trump before this debate describe Kamala Harris as, I'll just read a few of them, a low IQ individual, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, really dumb, unable to put two sentences together. Is that what you saw on the stage tonight?
John, what I saw was a lot of slogans. I think the American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if
I've
you
heard
actually
it.
think about what she
It's
said,
very
you
demeaning.
realize that it doesn't make any sense.
It sounds demeaning
She
to
talks
me.
a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say, I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that. She is
Interesting.
failed as vice president, and the fundamental question is, do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
All right, Senator Vance, thank you for joining us. Mary.
One thing both sides can agree on, this was a
JD Vance.
consequential
It's
night in
crazy.
this race. More reaction when we come back. Stay with us.
Yo, this dude, JD Vance, is crazy. Alright. I am like, I'm dying to hear what folks have to say about that. Shout out to everyone who pulled up for this. I mean, do you have like another one? I feel like there was supposed to be like 3, right? The vice presidents are supposed to have their debate. I wonder if that's going to happen, right? Tim Walz. What is it? Tim Walz and JD Vance. Let's see if that happens. Anyway, I guess that's it, right? That's it. That's what we wanted to do. I hope everyone enjoyed the stream. Thank you for being here. We'll have more available throughout the coming days and weeks. I mean, pretty much it's like game time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's game time. Make sure you go out there and go vote. You get educated. You figure out who you're going to vote for, where you're going to vote at, what time you're going to do it. You're going to do early, voting, freaking mailing, like what are you doing? What's the plan? Who you rolling with? Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. Make sure you figure out who you're voting for, who you're going with. And, what's the goals for 2025 and further for your family and for yourselves, right? The future only looks bright unless you invest into it, right? You got to work together in your communities with the great people that are right next to you. You got to work together to do great things, right? Fantastic. Folks, I hope everyone enjoyed the stream. I'm going to play this video. If you enjoyed my, coverage of it, please let me know in the comment section below. Shout out to ABC News. This is my YouTube channel here. Pull up. I would love to have you here. You can hit me up on all platforms. Put that right here for you. Yeah. I got a cool video here for you. We're going to play like a minute or two, and I'm out. Everyone have a great evening. We do these streams at least like a few times a week. Pull up. I'd love to have you here. Would love to have you here. Aha. We got Forbes, breaking news, sparks fly as victims of illegal immigrants testify before Judiciary Committee. Woo! I think this is Jim Jordan's. Nah, that's the that's a whole other thing. Like, I'll have to go show you that. With that kid in Atlanta. Very unfortunate. Shout out to Jim Jordan. I checked this out a little bit. I was like, we gotta throw this on for the stream. And since we're bouncing out of here, this is what we're gonna depart on. Thank you so much for being here, folks. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
The facts. In 2008.
Sorry, wrong video.
We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff Boudreau, One of the obvious and most frightening aspects of this open border is
It's
the
this guy.
migration of the most violent gangs in the world into our communities, such
This
as
guy right here.
MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. You said that the cartels are already trying to sink roots into your community. Could you go a little bit more into the details of what you're dealing with now in Tulare County?
Yes, sir. What's interesting is that
Check
the
this out.
cartels have actually infiltrated within California, even within agricultural businesses and businesses up and down the state of California. They are very smart, very good at what they do. They're businessmen. They're also very dangerous and violent, and they lead by intimidation and fear. In our county alone, the cartel that we dismantled was a Sinaloa cartel.
See it.
The DEA is, of the 50 people we arrested, the DEA is still hunting down the primary suspect who actually lives in Sinaloa, Mexico. During the course of this investigation, we did learn that homicides had taken place up and down the state, as well as in the central San Joaquin Valley.
And did you say that one suspect was responsible for 25 murders?
Yes, sir. So in another case,
This is what you're seeing in California today in real time.
real time, we have a man who was an assassin working for the cartel. And this man admitted to over 25 different assassinations that took place at the direction of the cartel. He was discovered after he had committed a homicide and accidentally had left a receipt from a gas station, and we caught him on video and was able to speak with him, and during the course of the investigation admitted to those. But what he also admitted is that he was responsible for a certain area of California, and there were many other assassins assigned by cartels in California, throughout California, that were responsible for those areas.
So this is going on all over the state, presumably all over every state. Are you hearing from other sheriffs about these issues?
I am.
And what are they saying?
They're saying much of the same thing. You know, Sheriff Lamb is a good friend of mine out of Arizona who he and I speak pretty regularly. Much of what I speak of in regards to California and the violence as well as the human trafficking, it's mirrored in other states all throughout the United States.
Now, illegal migrants often arrive into this country deeply indebted to the Mexican cartels that do actually control the border. How do the cartels enforce these debts on the other migrants?
Enforce on the other who?
On the other migrants.
What's happening in our communities, we're seeing people who have come into the United States on work visas and or victim visas where they're living in these small migrant farming towns. The cartel wants to control these migrant towns and truly lead the same way that they are in other countries.
This is all going on in America right now.
Specifically in Mexico.
So the violence we're seeing in Mexico is already here and is in the process of getting deeply rooted into our communities.
It's already rooted.
Wow. What impact would you say sanctuary policies are having on this phenomenon, as well as the Democrats' no-cash bail bonds?
Well, I can speak to California. As you are aware, Senate Bill 54 made California a sanctuary state. Here's some of the problems that we're facing. Every sheriff in the state of California in times past used to be able to ask immigration status of those who are arrested and coming through our jails. That no longer is in existence. Sheriffs and law enforcement are no longer allowed under Senate Bill 54, supported by Kamala Harris at the time, spearheading much of the Senate Bill 54 with Sacramento Democrats.
So when the Democrats tell us, well, there's no real evidence that illegal migrants cause more crimes, you're not even allowed to ask if they're illegal migrants.
Well, and that's part of the formula. If I'm not able to ask, then there's no data to support. And so we are legally bound in California from asking someone their immigration status